Hi everyone, it's me Lindsay with EquipMeOT here today to talk about commode management. Now this is a topic that gets a lot of talk out in the community, but I haven't found a lot of resources here. So I wanted to share what I know about how to keep a commode hygienic, easy to manage, and most importantly for a lot of folks, low odor, which commodes can get kind of stinky over time. So I want to show you the ways that I know to keep them managed. This will help both caregivers as well as the user of the commodes. And this is a situation where either you're using the commode short term while you recover from an injury or surgery, or for the long-term care of somebody. So these 3-in-1 commodes are the only thing that you'll get through insurance that'll help manage your bathroom needs. So these are very, very common. This is just a standard one. This one actually folds up, which is kind of nice for storage. But generally speaking, they all have the same components when you get them new. And it's important to note that if you get one used or you have one that you don't think has all the right pieces, having a lid that closes as well as with the bucket, having a secondary cover like this can make a huge difference in being able to manage odors, especially if you're going to be using the commode as a nighttime solution where perhaps it's not going to get emptied every single time it's used. These lids can make a huge difference in keeping the smell down. And it can also help with keeping it easier to transport the bucket to the bathroom to empty it and back again, because this will prevent splashes so you don't end up with a trail of urine or even some stool splashing outside of the commode area. So these lids, while sometimes are missing, are really, really useful. And you can actually buy replacement lids and buckets. So having a second one available can be really nice so that you can be switching them out as you're cleaning them. So that's one thing that I would look out for. This particular design isn't anything fancy. They do have different models. I've done a video on what's called a padded drop arm commode. Those are significantly more expensive, but they have some features that might be really useful to others, and the setup is very similar, though they have cushions. So anytime you're using a padded commode, the cleaning has to be a bit more rigorous because those cushions do have seams that do tend to collect a little bit more bacteria growth. So check out that video here if you're interested. I have done one. Okay, so let's talk about the lowest impact as far as cost and environment. So a lot of the different ways you can manage a commode involve cleaning chemicals that can be a bit harsh, or products like Commode Liners and absorbency products that can be a bit pricey. So these are some options that I want to share up front that are very low impact on your budget and low impact on the environment. So first things first, always have your commode bucket if you're going to use just the bucket by itself, no liners or anything else, have it about a third of the way full with water. So I'll show you here. I'm going to come closer here. Always have the bucket a third of the way full with water. Think of it like a regular toilet. If you don't have water in there, it's not going to dilute the urine, so the urine odor is going to be much stronger. And it's much more difficult to empty it, especially for bowel movements. If you have this empty, cleaning it out, if it's empty and just bare plastic, is much more challenging. So just be aware that having some water in there can make all the difference. Now, some will recommend adding some sort of cleaner to the water to help keep the odor down. I do not recommend this. Splashing in even a diluted amount of cleaning solution onto somebody could be very dangerous for skin integrity. It can cause sores and things like that, so I really don't recommend it, and the fumes can be problematic if just sitting in the room next to somebody. So I don't recommend adding anything to the water. Some people may add a little bit of like essential oils to kind of make a pleasant smell, but even that is kind of unnecessary and probably more work than it's worth. Just adding the water alone can make a big difference, and then like I said, having access to the lid, covering it, and then dropping this all down, that will help seal it in if you're using a commode that's going to be used more than once or not emptied immediately after use, which is fairly common. Okay, so that's one way that you can do this for very low cost. Another thing to consider is how you're cleaning the commode. Making your own cleaning solution with warm water and diluted bleach is probably the gold standard. When it comes to cleaning a commode, I strongly recommend using bleach or hydrogen peroxide. Either of those are capable of killing the really nasty viruses and bacteria that can be harbored in and around a commode surface. Things like C. diff, E. coli, salmonella, these really yucky things that can cause a lot of problems. You want to make sure every time the commode is used and cleaned that it is cleaned with a proper antibacterial and antiviral chemical like bleach. Some people aren't super comfortable with that, so make sure you're wearing your gloves. You can even mask while you're doing it to keep the exposure low, but trust me when I say this, after working in a hospital for a long time, that is super important. It will also keep the commode smelling better if you're using a really good, strong cleaning solution. You can use vinegar in between cleans, and that will not necessarily reduce the bacterial and viral load, but it's a really good odor reducer. So using a diluted vinegar solution in the bucket every so often, even after every use, can help to keep the smell down. So even though the plastic isn't porous, it will eventually start to kind of harbor some smells that aren't so pleasant. So using a vinegar solution in it can help with that as well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about another thing that can make this job a lot easier. And I'm going to cut away here to show you what we have, and that is installing a sprayer system. So having a sprayer on the toilet that's being used to clean the commode bucket out can make your life a lot easier. It makes it much less hands-on for cleaning out the inside of the commode bucket. And this is again for situations where perhaps you're not going to put a liner or anything in the bucket. Having the sprayer on hand makes a huge difference. So this sprayer system, I have an installation video that you can watch here if you have any questions about that. And then last but not least, considering the environment in which the commode is being placed. So I'm on hard floors in here, but even on hard floors you have small gaps between the vinyl planking. If you're on tile, you certainly have grout lines, porous surfaces, and then there's carpet and things like that. No matter what the surface is, I recommend placing a really easy to clean barrier between your commode and the floor. Whether that's an under chair plastic sheet, which is nice because they're heavy and they rarely catch or roll up underneath like a walker or mobility aid underneath it, so it's easy to wipe, easy to sanitize. You can also use things that are found and oftentimes sold as under high chairs for children, but those are also going to be really easy to wash and clean and sanitize, and it will save your floors, and it will make a huge difference in keeping the odor down for those occasional spills that inevitably happen when you're cleaning up a commode setup. Okay, so now let's talk about a little higher cost, a little maybe less environmentally friendly, but much lower effort required for doing it for the caregiver. So some products that I like. So first things first, one of the most common use products I see that can really help with managing a commode is Commode liner bags. And these bags come with an absorbency pad with them. Just looks like this. They are gonna really absorb a lot of liquid, a surprising amount of liquid for the size of them. Very easy to set up. Strongly recommend this in situations where you're doing having to do a lot of bowel movements and having to clean that up in here, because not having a bag in there can really add to the amount of time it takes to clean it up. So having a bag like this that allows you to not only seal off after it's been removed, it can go into an exterior trash can once it's been sealed. It will make life a lot easier. And I strongly recommend having some sort of absorbent pad, or this is another option. This is called Urine Solidifier, but I'll show you how those both work in a second. But the pad then goes into the bottom of the container, and that way if the individual who's using the container both urinates and has a bowel movement, there's something to absorb the liquid. Because if you don't have anything to absorb the liquid, when you go to remove the bag, it can leak, it can break open, all of those things, and it makes it much more difficult to dispose of. So then you're just going to put it into this all lined. I like to tuck the edges so that it's not going to run the risk of coming out, and then you simply place that over it. Now it's so much easier to empty and remove. If you don't use a liner like this, so this particular brand of Commode bags comes with liners in each bag. So that's already done for you, but that's a little pricier. I've seen some other options where individuals will use pads, like a high absorbency pad in them if they already have them and they're covered by insurance. Or, like I said, you can use things like kitty litter. And there's certain kitty litters that are more environmentally friendly than others, so adding a small amount of kitty litter to the bottom of the bag can help both absorb odor as well as absorb the liquid so that it's much easier to remove. And then the other option is these absorbency solidifiers. These are really nice because they're also deodorizers. These are commonly sold as an option for transportable potties that are used for like camping or hiking, or even if you have small children and you have to bring a portable potty along with you. You simply put a few scoops of the solidifier either right on top of the liquid, or in the situation for a commode, I tell people to put a few tablespoons of it into the bag. And what that'll do again is absorb the liquid and create a gel, or a kind of a more of a powder. So again, when you go to pull the bag out, remove it, it won't spill or run the risk of making a big mess. So this is a great solution, especially like I said, if you're dealing with somebody who is frequently using the Commode as their only option, and maybe they're both having urinary and bowel movements in the Commode.